Hi, this is Adrenakrohm. Welcome back to the Filterverse modulation series. This time, we're looking at the sequencer module. There's a lot to discuss in this one, so let's get straight to it. So the sequencer module is the biggest and most complex module, and it will most likely be at the heart of most of your patches. The first thing to say about it is that it doubles as an LFO. So if you look at the waveform down here, you can already see it starting to resemble a traditional LFO sine wave. We can then assign that to cutoff like so, ensure the maximum modulation depth is 60 if it's set to bipolar mode. I mentioned that in one of the earlier modules, and now we have it modulating positive and negative. Should we not want it as a sine LFO, we can zero that out and draw in a little shape like so. Or obviously we can choose one of the predefined shapes, which I'll get to in a moment. Below that we have the rate. It's currently set to 1 bar. However, we can increase that to 1/64th, all the way down to 32 bars, and it includes dotted and triplet notes, as you can see here. Let's put it back to, let's say, 1/8. However, if we click this little button here, then we turn off the tempo sync and we have it adjustable in kilohertz, like so. Let's, however, turn tempo sync back on. Let's put it to 2 bars, say. And then to the right of that, we have the shapes, which are the heart of the module. And essentially, the shapes are split into 4 categories, A, B, C, and D. A uses a smooth interpolation between the slopes to create more sine-like shapes, or essentially anything that's, I guess, less pointy. B, however, has a linear interpolation between the shapes. So then you get things like triangles, like so. Type C is essentially a step sequencer, or if you press Alt, then you can get more precise and draw in the MIDI notes, and each one of these steps will hold that particular note. Or shape D, this is more for rhythmic patterns. Usually we'd use this in unipolar mode. You might have noticed that I'm pressing the keyboard buttons, so A, B, C, and D go directly to the shapes, like so. It makes it much easier to flick through. Let's go to A, and then each of these shapes are split into groups of 10. So 0 through to 9 are sinusoidal types, 10 through to 19 are triangle based, 20 through to 29 are saw based, 30 to 39 are square or pulse width, 40 to 49 are more complicated squares and pulses, 50 to 59 are rhythmic pulses, 60 to 69 are, more complicated rhythmic patterns, 70 to 79 are envelopes, 80 to 89 are more step sequencer type, and then 90 to 99 is just kind of wiggly stuff. However, if we go all the way to the top, random, that creates a new random pattern every time you click on it. So essentially pattern 100. So if I click on it again, that's a different random pattern to that one. Or I can put it on B and do another random pattern, or C, it's another random. To the left of that, we have the number of steps. So currently it's on 16, but it goes down to 1. So adjusting this makes for really quite cool polyrhythmic stuff. And moving on to the next tree, we have the retrig button. So essentially this means that the sequencer or LFO will start every time a new key is pressed, or if we turn it off, then it runs indefinitely. The very observant of you might have noticed that when we press this button, our little modulation friends up, which means we can now cross-modulate that with anything else. So if we add another, let's say oscillator for example, doesn't matter, we can use that oscillator to control the rate of the sequencer. Let's turn it off for now though. Note that when retrig is on, host sync is off, and vice versa. To the right of that, we have unipolar or bipolar mode. I've discussed this in previous modules. Essentially, when it's like this, it's set to unipolar mode, or if we click that, then it's bipolar. So the modulation both ways of the 0 axes. And that can be easily demonstrated by looking at the cutoff. So if you're looking at it's going positive and negative, like so, or if we click on this, it will only go positive. To the right of that, we have swing, so that adjusts the timing forward or backwards to give a bit of groove. I'll give a demonstration on that one later. And then finally to the right, we have the polarity button, so we can shift it positive or negative polarity, or we can move the sequence left or right, like so. So we can shift the polarity and then move it across should we wish. So that adds quite a bit more flexibility to it once you've already created the pattern. Right, so let's look at some examples. Let's turn Filterverse off, listen to what we have as the source sound. Just a pad, let's turn it on. And we have the Swiss Army knife set to that. Let's now turn a sequencer on. We have this set to 1/16th as a square. Let's assign this to the cutoff just a bit, like let's go 5. Let's maybe make this stereo. Pretty cool. However, let's now add another one into sequencer slot 2. This one is a lot longer. This is set to 4 bars, also assigned to cutoff. So a simple and classic LFO technique. Let's move on to the next example now, which is the first of the polymeter examples. So once again, we have the same pad source sound. The filter type in this example is set to double slit. Let's turn sequencer 1 on. Once again, assigned to cutoff like so. Now let's turn sequencer 2 on. This time, however, it's set to 1/2 triplet. So now you can hear the two sequencer rates interacting with each other. Let's maybe change that up a bit. Let's change this to, let's go 1/8 dotted. Maybe shape D, D100. Let's do the same over here. Let's put this to 1/4. I really like that, super nice. Right, so let's move on to the third example now, which is a polymeter with cross modulation. So in this example, I have sequencer 1 set to cutoff, just like before, set to a rate of 1/8 triplets, and it sounds like this. So let's turn sequencer 2 on now, and we're going to cross modulate sequencer 1 with the rate of sequencer 2. Assign the modulation up here like so, and now when we play this back, you can hear sequencer 2 cross modulating sequencer 1. Or just sequencer 1, and now the cross modulation. Pretty cool. So next up, we're going to use the sequencer to add a bit of glitchiness or a bit of movement at the end of a sequence, or the end of a bar in this example. So let's turn sequencer 1 on, and we have it set to one of these random-like shapes. It's currently assigned to cutoff, just like earlier. When we play this back, it's very glitchy, it's too glitchy. I only want it to appear at the end of the bar. So let's turn sequencer 2 on, like so. And then we cross-modulate sequencer 2 into sequencer 1, like so. And let's draw in a little bit of a pattern. So now you can hear it go up. Pretty cool, just the occasional glitch at the end of the bar or occasionally throughout. Moving on to example 5, probably one of my favorites actually, just because it's so simple and so effective. We're going to create a pseudo panned delay. So play this back, we have this sequencer pattern assigned to cutoff. Sounds like so. Let's however copy this one across to 2 like so. To do that you press Alt and you can just drag it like that. Let's turn the modulation up like so. So let's go to our modulation, and you can see they're both modulating exactly the same. Let's click on the uncoupled stereo like so, and we'll have sequencer 1 control the left, and sequencer 2 control the right like so. But they're still doing exactly the same because they're both set to the same pattern. But now, let's move this over a couple, like so. Awesome. So simple and so effective. So on to the next example now, which is polymeters. Here I have sequencer 1 assigned to cutoff again. Set with 8 steps, which is important to know for now. But now let's add a second one, and let's set the rate of steps in this example to 6. So now we have a polyrhythm going on. Maybe change that up a bit. Let's make this one 6. So they're both 6 now. Let's change this one down to 4. Really nice. Moving on to the next example, here we're going to compound several sequences via a meta knob. So for the source sound in this one, it's just white noise, which sounds obviously horrible. Let's turn Filterverse back on. In this example, the filter type is set to flange. Let's turn the meta knob in slot 1 on, like so. It's currently set to cutoff, so if we play this back, you'll hear the pitch of the flange change. Like so. However, let's turn it to one of the quantized scales. Let's go the sustained mode. There we go. And now when I play this back, you'll hear it step through the scale. Perfect. So now let's control that with a sequencer. Let's turn sequencer 2 on. Let's assign that to the meta knob. And now you can hear it step through the scales over the duration of 4 bars. Let's add another one. Once again, assigned to the meta knob. This one's 1/8 dotted. Let's go again. Maybe change the type to vacuum. Let's see what that one sounds like. Really nice. And then maybe just to finish it off, let's add some tempo lay. This one is modulated by sequencer 5. Really nice. Just to remind you what we started off with. And now we have this. Pretty cool. So moving on to the next example now, we're going to use a second sequencer to modulate the rate of the first. So currently we have sequencer 1 assigned to cutoff at a rate of 4 Hz. I have tempo sync off. Let's turn retrig on. Sounds like so. So now if we open up sequencer 2, we have this shape here, which is increased at the start, then decreased in the second step, and then back to unity in the middle. So now let's assign this to the rate, like so. So you can hear that rate change very pronounced throughout that bar. Obviously you can make that more gradual should you wish. Let's go one of the B shapes. Let's go the pattern similar to what we had in the first one. So now we have a gradual decline. Moving on to the next example now, we're going to use a sequencer to control the oscillator. So the oscillator is set to cutoff for some audio rate modulation, and it sounds like this. So just to add that kind of high-end grit to it. But it's a little too consistent, I feel. So let's turn sequencer 2 on. We're going to assign that to the course, to the pitch, like so. Just a little bit, like 24, 25. And then when we play this back, this pattern here will drive that pitch. Just turn it down a bit. Pretty cool. Or we can try different filter type. Let's go with something like ripples, might sound good, which is here. That also sounds really good. So now for the final example now, to demonstrate swing. This is standard, or we can move it back, or forward. I find just a little bit goes a long way. So there we go, the sequencer module. Quite a long episode this time, and that's just on account of the complexity of the module itself. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with the pitch detect. See you then.